Imagine trying to piece together a lost world, a whole civilization thriving in South India 2,000 years ago. But here's the catch. There are no grand palaces left, no royal records to read. All we have is this incredible collection of poems called Sangam literature. It's our only window into this forgotten time. And when you read them, you get lines like this. I mean, it's just epic, right? It's all about these larger-than-life kings and their incredible battles. It paints this picture of a truly glorious age. It's amazing stuff. But there's a huge problem. You see, if you're a historian and you're trying to build a real, factual timeline, these poems are an absolute nightmare. They're just overflowing with passion and metaphor and myths. Basically everything a historian doesn't want. The very things that make them incredible art make them incredibly frustrating as historical documents. So you have to wonder, are we just looking at a library of myths? Is any of it real? For the longest time, that was the big nagging question hanging over all of these texts. I mean, look at this mismatch. It's pretty clear, right? Historians are hunting for hard facts, dates you can verify, actual political treaties, a clear family tree for the kings. But what does Sangam literature give them? Hero worship, romantic poems, and these bizarre attempts to link local kings to ancient mythological wars. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And it gets worse when you dig in. The poets, well, they were paid by the kings, so they weren't exactly writing objective history. They were writing praise songs. We get these wild, exaggerated claims about victories, made-up titles for rulers. They even tried to connect their local kings to the Mahabharata, the epic of gods and heroes, just to make them seem more important. And then when archaeologists go looking for these supposed great cities, like the port of Kaveripattanam, they often find nothing. It's just not there. So it really feels like a dead end, doesn't it? But then there's a shift, a realization that maybe the problem isn't the text itself, but how we've been trying to read it. This is the turning point. What if we've been trying to force this literature to be a history book when it was never meant to be one? What if instead of asking, is this politically accurate, we should have been asking a totally different question from the start? And here's the twist. What if that focus on romance, on daily life, on just the feel of their world, what if that isn't a flaw? What if that's exactly where the real treasure has been hiding this whole time? Because the moment you stop looking for a political timeline and start looking for a social one, these poems just explode with the most incredible, vivid details about how people actually lived. For instance, the poems mention a society with 4 main groups, or varnas. You've got the Arishar, who were the kings and nobles, the Brahmanas, the priests, the Vaishyar were the traders, and the Valala, who were the farmers. But what's really key here is that the system seemed way less strict and rigid than what you'd find in North India at the time. And we get this amazing snapshot of what life was like. Their society was built around these clans called kuti. We find out that women could actually choose their own partners, and love marriages were a normal thing. But it wasn't all perfect, not by a long shot. The poems also talk about the awful life widows had to endure, and the practice of sati. We learn about their beliefs, like wearing amulets to protect against evil, and even how they buried their dead. This is the kind of stuff a dry political history would completely miss. And all of this, their social life, was totally intertwined with how they made a living. These poems don't just tell us how people lived, they show us this incredibly vibrant and complex economy that was the backbone of their whole world. At the heart of it all was this concept called tenai. It's fascinating. They didn't just see land as, land. They divided it into 5 distinct zones, and each zone had its own unique economy and culture that was tied directly to the landscape itself. And it's so beautifully logical. You had the Kuranji, the hills, where people hunted, then the Mulai, the pastoral lands where herders lived with their cattle. The Maratham was the fertile plains, the agricultural engine of the region. Down on the coast, you had the Nathal, all about fishing and sea trade. And finally, there was the Palai, the dry lands, where life was tough and sometimes you had to resort to raiding to survive. It's this brilliant economic and ecological map, all wrapped up in their culture. And this economy wasn't some isolated little bubble. No way. This place was a serious player on the world stage, a buzzing hub of international trade. The poems talk about ships docking from as far away as the Roman Empire. They list all the precious goods they were sending out: silk, cotton, ivory, and especially pepper and pearls, which people in Rome and Greece couldn't get enough of. And, woven right into all these stories of trade, we find out that women were super involved in the economy, spinning, weaving, selling goods. they were right in the middle of all this prosperity. So when you put it all together, when you step back and look at the whole picture, you finally see it. You see what the real treasure of Sangam literature actually is. It was never supposed to be a history book about kings and wars. Its real value, the thing that makes it so precious, is that it's a portrait of a people. It shows us how they lived, how they loved, what they believed in, how they saw their world. It's the soul of a civilization, captured in verse. And really, that's the biggest takeaway here. Some empires leave behind giant stone monuments to tell their story, but the legacy of this ancient Tamil world, it was left to us in its poetry. A history written not in stone, but in song.